Welcome to my channel on the best of fantasy. Today I am doing the Malazan Reader Tag. This is a tag that was created by Counselor of Moon's Spawn. She is one of the great Malazan booktubers out there, in case you haven't heard of her before. Many of them inspired by Iskar Jarak. So I will include a link in the description below to the tag, the original tag by Counselor of Moon's Spawn, and also a link to Iskar Jarak's channel. Before I get started with the tag itself, a couple little announcements. One, I am joined today by a little artist. So there's Reshma, everyone. You know, I just didn't want to disturb her, never disturb an artist at her work. So she's going to be there in the background. And the other announcement is something I'm very excited about for the channel. This is something I'm going to be doing for my Malazan reread that I've been talking about for months now, and it is going to begin very soon. I am so excited for this. I'm going to be doing something a bit different from the usual review when I start reading. Next week, actually, I'm going to start with Gardens of the Moon, and I'm going to be doing, in a couple weeks, a review of that of sorts. It's going to be actually a conversation, and I'm very excited to be part of this conversation. I will have an announcement about it next Wednesday, so I hope that you will tune in for that. I'm completely excited about it. And so, yeah, that's coming up soon. So this is a great time for me to be doing this tag as well. I'm very grateful to Counselor of Moonspawn for tagging me. So let's get started here. Number one in the tag. How did you find out about Malazan? Well, let's see. I found out about it probably through my own research. You know, before joining BookTube, I did not know anyone who had read the Malazan Book of the Fallen, besides myself. And I was at a point in my fantasy reading 2 or 3 years ago where I was trying to look around. I was doing the little Google searches like best fantasy series or something like that, because I really wanted to find something interesting and new, and I've been on this sort of, I guess, quest for great fantasy for quite a while now, and was the reason why I started teaching a fantasy novels course, and why I decided ultimately to start a channel. It's all about finding great fantasy. So I actually probably found out, I don't exactly remember, but I'm sure I heard about the Malazan Book of the Fallen on several websites and things of that nature. Didn't really know much about it going into it. I went into it pretty cold and just started reading Gardens of the Moon and getting lost right away, like many other readers might do. So that's how I found out about it. I think it was just through my own efforts to find out about great fantasy and expand my own fantasy reading to be enriched. So yeah. And number two, let's move on. Describe your experience reading it for the first time. So yeah, I just alluded to the fact that I got lost, probably like a lot of other readers when I initially started reading. I read Gardens of the Moon, and I loved it. I thought, wow, on many levels I was super impressed. I was very impressed by the prose. It's something I pay attention to a lot, and I was impressed by the characters, and the setting all seemed so big and so, interesting and vast. I was a little lost at first, and then I sort of felt like I was getting into a groove there and found some of the characters very interesting, and then started on the second book, and Dead House Gates, and suddenly I was somewhere else, and I thought, oh, what gives here? And again, sort of felt lost for a while. And yeah, that happened again when I got to book 5, Midnight Tides. We went to a different continent altogether. So my experience in the beginning was a lot of feeling a little lost, but being super impressed at the same time. And I'm the kind of reader fantasy reader particularly, it's probably not a good thing, actually, I have to admit. It's sort of a compulsive behavior of mine. I'm constantly flipping back to the map because I want to know where they are now geographically. And I'm always going back to the list of characters in the back, and these things are useful. But I obsess over knowing who's who and sort of mastering everything and knowing who everyone is and where everything is and getting the geography in my head. And probably that doesn't help my reading experience sometimes. So that is something I am working on, being a little less compulsive about that. And so I think that affected my reading experience too, perhaps, is that I just needed to relax a little bit and enjoy the story a little more. And eventually that happened. I did settle in, and I started loving the books more and more as I continued through the series, definitely. So, but I was sufficiently confused for enough of the books that I knew that I was going to reread these books. I was so impressed with them, and I wanted to experience them more fully after I had sort of gotten familiarized with the world and the characters and everything else. So it was something I knew I was going to do even before I started this channel. Maybe it's even one of the reasons why I started this channel, actually. So I initially made a bunch of videos about fantasy series that I consider to be great, that I consider to be, some of the best in the genre. And the Malazan Book of the Fallen was one of them, one of the series that I made a video about. And even when I made that video way back, it seems like a long time ago now. It wasn't that long ago. But I knew even then I was going to be rereading the series, and I've been building up to this and building up to this. So yeah, I guess it's sort of wrapped up in my whole experience with the channel and everything else now. It's kind of a great thing. Number 3, when did you realize this series was going to be an all-time favorite? That's an interesting question. I was, as I said before, I was super impressed with the prose, and I wanted to love the characters, and the world was just incredible and vast. So I think I knew as I was reading the series that this is definitely one of the greatest achievements ever in fantasy, maybe in literature. And I was very, very attracted to the themes in there and how deep this reading was, and simultaneously entertaining. So I knew pretty much right away that this was going to be up there for me. And I think that what really clinched it, when something just kind of fell into place for me. Ironically, it's not while I was reading the Malazan Book of the Fallen, it was while I was going about trying to prepare myself for my reread. I decided to read some of the prequel stuff and to get to know the world better and all that. And so I took up the Carcanis trilogy, the 2 books that are published so far in them, and not too far into the first book, Forge of Darkness, that is, I had some things just sort of fall into place, and I realized, I think that's what Stephen Erickson was up to in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. So for me, I don't know if that happens to too many people. I as a result of reading the Carcanis trilogy, I felt like I made a breakthrough and that I understood these books better. And now I'm really feeling revved up and prepared for my reread. So yeah, that's how it happened for me. Number 4, what is your favorite aspect of the series? These are fantastic questions. My favorite aspect, there's so many ways to answer this question and so many valid answers. I think I'm going to go with the sense of connection. The sense of connection in that the characters are all connected to one another in this vast tapestry of a story, and the sense of connection in that there is this almost at times erasure of individual identity, that an individual gets subsumed not only into the story, but literally in some cases in the books, you have characters who become more than one person in a sense. And there's this incredible sense of empathy and people reaching out beyond the boundaries of their own skin. And I think that's just marvelous. That is something that I think is incredibly beautiful. And that is something I admire greatly. And that maybe some of the most beautiful parts for me of the Malazan Book of the Fallen are those parts where the characters are reaching out beyond themselves and feeling that sense of connection with others. And there are so many wonderful examples of that. But yeah, I think that's my favorite thing. And the themes in there are just brilliant and wonderful. And it's reading that engages you in the sense of being entertaining, but it also really gets the mind working. So I very much admire that. Number 5, nothing is truly perfect. Share a little gripe you have with Malazan. Let me see. I don't know. I should have come up with an answer for this. Nothing leaps to mind, honestly. I'm not trying to be nice here or anything. I do feel that it took me a while to get comfortable I would say maybe 4 or 5 books, maybe 6 even, I don't know, before I felt like, I mean, it's a commitment, isn't it? It's a huge commitment in a sense. And probably I made it more so. I made it more painful for myself because of my tendency to want to understand everything and know who's who and you know what's where and all that. So I think that is probably self-inflicted in a way, but maybe if I had to come up with something, I'm a little desperate here, but if I had to come up with something, I think that might be the vastness of it, which is something I actually admire more than anything, but it requires a commitment, and that's I think something that most fans of the series would recognize, perhaps. So that's not really a gripe, though, is it? No, I don't think so. Well, best I could do. Number 6, what are your favorite and least favorite installments? Okay, the first one I think I can answer. Well, maybe it's not as easy as I thought. I loved Dead House Gates. I thought that was for me, a moment when I understood, wow, this is amazing. This is the whole chain of dogs. It was breathtaking to me and beautiful. I talked about those moments of connection, and that was one of the amazing ones for me early on. I think that might be the first time I realized, oh, wow, this is really quite interesting. Also, I think everyone loves Memories of Ice. That's a good one. Book 3. I also love book 5, where we do meet some new characters like Tehol Bedict. But I'm going to go with The Crippled God as my answer to the question. The last book in the series. And that is because I believe that Steven Erikson really brought it home there. Again, with these beautiful themes and the sense of connection and everything else just came to a wonderful convergence, a wonderful, cathartic ending that was deeply satisfying. So I'm going to go with The Crippled God for my answer to that. And least favorite, I'm just going to have to, I don't know. I don't have a least favorite. And there was no single book in there that I thought, and that you can't always say that with a long series, that's for sure. There was nothing in there that I can say I didn't like. And I can't answer that one. Yeah, sorry. Let's see. Number 7. How many times have you read this series? So, probably obvious by now, I've only read the 10 books one time. And so one of the big things I'm doing on my channel is this reread, which is beginning very soon. So that's my attempt to really, I think, understand and enjoy the series this time. I plan on enjoying myself immensely. So yeah, I'm headed for my first reread, and then probably it'll be the first of many, I suspect. I know a lot of fans out there who have read the series, X number of times because they love it so much, and I get that. So let's see. Number 8, besides the Malazan Book of the Fallen, what other series from the Malazan world have you read? Aha! So I think I sort of answered that as part of my preparation for the reread. I did read the Carcanus trilogy, or the 2 books that are published so far there, Forge of Darkness and Fall of Light. I very recently finished reading Ian Esselmont's prequel trilogy and had a great time reading that. I very much enjoyed A Path to Ascendancy, starting with Dancer's Lament and Dead House Landing, and just recently finished Kellenved's Reach. I loved that prequel, actually, and I keep talking about how wonderful it was and how I feel like it should be read a lot more. I think that the people need to get the word out about how fantastic A Path to Ascendancy is. And I have not yet read Ian Esselmont's 6 novels of the Malazan Empire, so I am actually incorporating them into my reread of the Malazan Book of the Fallen. So I'll be doing these in publication order simultaneously throughout the coming year. So yeah, that's where I am, and I also intend to include the short story tales, Bocalane and Corbel Broach, as I do the reread as well. So I'm gonna get to everything eventually. So yeah, it's gonna be a fun year. And what else do we have here? Number 9. What are your reading interests beyond Malazan? Wow. Okay. So, well, in terms of fantasy, I read very broadly. I try to get a taste of everything. I want to, again, there's my quest for reading the best of fantasy. So I've been reading lots and lots and lots, and you can see on my recent reviews, I've been reading Robin Hobb and thoroughly enjoying the second trilogy in the realm of the Elderlings, the Liveship Traders trilogy, after having read the Farseer trilogy a couple years ago. And I love Joe Abercrombie, and I love, George Martin's books, and there's just so many, too many to name, really. But Tolkien was the one who brought me into fantasy in the first place, I have to say. He's the author who opened the door, and I have been wandering around in the realm of fantasy ever since. And it seems like a fairly broad question, so reading interests beyond Malazan Book of the Fallen would include all kinds of stuff. I am an English professor, and I'm a medievalist, so I love medieval stuff. And I love, reading broadly. I like to learn stuff, so I'd like to read about science and history and other things too. And number 10, what advice would you give to a first-time reader of the Malazan Book of the Fallen? So don't be like me. Don't do what I did, which is try to figure out everything and worry about which continent they're on and which city and how all this and who's related to who and everything else. I would say don't be obsessive compulsive like that if you can help it, and you should enjoy the moment. Be in the moment and enjoy the story. There's so much to enjoy. And yeah, be in the moment. Don't worry about mastering this vast series all at once. You can only be in the moment you're in, right? And if you're worrying about something else outside of it, you're missing the moment. So enjoy the moment. That's, I guess, I've heard that advice a couple times, and now I really I want to take it to heart myself as I do my reread of the series. So yeah, that would be my main advice. And I'm going to tag a few people, 3 to be precise, fellow booktubers. And actually, Counselor of Moonspawn tagged most of the Malazan content creators that I know, but there are a few others, and one would be Matt at Books Rebound. This is a guy, one of those fans who's read the series, I think, like 10 times or something like that. So he is a big-time Malazan fan, and you should check out his channel for sure, because he is a really, really smart reviewer and one of the smartest people on BookTube. There's also Kate Kennedy, and she has done lots of great Malazan content as well. Definitely check out her channel. I'll put a link in their channels in the description below. And then there's my buddy Alan from the Library of Alexandria. I was trying to think of who else do I know who's read the Malazan Book of the Fallen. Alan, you've read them all now, I think. Or have you? Did you finish The Crippled God, Alan? Well, I sure hope so. And even if you haven't finished, I think you would be a perfect candidate for this tag. So I'm tagging Alan as well. And obviously, I fully endorse his wonderful channel. He's got one of the greatest personalities on BookTube. So, yeah, that's it from me. And very soon, as I mentioned before, I will be reviewing Robin Hobb's, the 3rd book in the Liveship Traders trilogy, Ship of Destiny. What a fantastic read that's been. So I look forward to discussing it with you. And I will see you all soon, I hope. Until next time.